Hi, today we're going to go over a lesson about trigonometry, lesson 8.3. And I'm going to introduce you to 3 new words. The words are sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, each of these words just represents a side of a triangle over another side. That's the easiest way to think of it. So this definition here, this here on the left, is really important. We will end up memorizing it before we're finished. So what we're going to start with is labeling the sides of this triangle. Now, if you see here, it says sine of angle A and cosine of angle A and tangent of angle A. Now, the way we want to shorten that because we want to make it as short as possible. So we abbreviate these, first of all, each word with 3 letters. So on your calculator, you'll see SIN, COS, and TAN. These are abbreviations. You don't actually say sin, cos, and tan. You say the entire word. You say sine, cosine, and tangent. The letter A next to it means you're going to start from the angle that they tell you. So here we're going to start from angle A. So when you look at this triangle, first of all, it has to be a right triangle. Now, second, you always work from an acute angle. So angle A is acute. So let's label the hypotenuse. There's only one side that can be the hypotenuse. We know it's always opposite the 90-degree angle. Now we have a side called the opposite side. So you find the angle you're working from and straight across, this is your opposite side. Now this is actually a leg, so I'm going to label it opposite leg. Now the remaining one is this is called your adjacent leg. The adjacent leg actually is part of the angle. So notice here how this comes up and it touches angle A. Now, some people think the hypotenuse is also adjacent leg. Well, the hypotenuse already has a name, so we can't name it 2 things. So the adjacent leg is the other side of the angle. The hypotenuse is one side. As you can see here, the hypotenuse is one side, and then the adjacent leg is the other side that forms the angle that is given to you in the question. Okay, so now we're going to abbreviate some things here. Now it says length of the leg opposite angle A. So instead of writing out the opposite leg every time, let's just use the letter O. Okay, so O means opposite. So this is your opposite leg. Now, and I'm reading over here on the left, and it says it's the length of the hypotenuse. So let's, give a letter for the hypotenuse. And so let's call this H. So this is opposite over hypotenuse. So on this one, what letters are here? From angle A, the opposite side is this lowercase a, and the hypotenuse is the lowercase c. So I could label this A over C. When you do real problems, you'll have numbers, and you'll use those numbers, and you'll just write a little fraction. So right now I'm just introducing it to you. It's going to be confusing. I understand that. Just try to stick with me, and you'll understand by the end. The next vocab word is cosine. Let's read together. It says the length of the adjacent leg and the length of the hypotenuse. So let's go back to the picture. So it's the adjacent leg. Let's use an A for adjacent. It's an A. And it says it's over the hypotenuse. So your hypotenuse is a H. Now let's use the lowercase letters. So that would be B over C. Lowercase b over c. Now the last one is the tangent. So tangent is the only one that doesn't deal with the hypotenuse. So usually the tangent's the easiest to realize because when you look at it, you're, oh, there's no hypotenuse. So it is the opposite leg over the adjacent leg. So let's write O over A. So my opposite is lowercase a, and my adjacent leg is b. Okay, so I understand this doesn't make sense yet. You will get it. Now, I'm going to abbreviate this stuff one more step. Okay, now for sine, let's use S. Cosine is C, and T for tangent. And if you already notice over here, we have O over H, and I have that here, O over H. And cosine was A over H, and that's what I have. And tangent is O over A, which means opposite over adjacent. So this is what we need to memorize. This is like a little cheat sheet. So as long as you understand what S, C, and T stand for, sine, cosine, and tangent, and you understand what O, H, and A stand for, which is opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent, this is great. This is a little cheat sheet. Now, a way to memorize this is to memorize Sohcahtoa. So like when you were in algebra, your teacher probably taught you order of operations and told you to memorize PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. This is just another thing to help you memorize some math things that will help you. Now, when I was in geometry, my teacher said, just remember Sohcahtoa. But I spell very phonetically, and that was hard for me to spell. I couldn't remember how to spell it. So just saying, hey kids, spell Sohcahtoa wasn't helpful to me. So what was helpful is to come up with like a saying. So this is what I came up with. So some old horse caught another horse taking oats away. Okay, now you might be thinking, Mrs. Profine's crazy, but but just stick with me here. If you look at the first letter, this is Sohcahtoa. Some old horse, that's S-O-H. If you look up here, notice that's the same thing. And then caught another horse, that's C-A-H, which is cosine over adjacent over hypotenuse. And then toa, T-O-A. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, I would suggest either making up something that's your own. I know Mr. Holicky, he has some funny ones that he likes to make up. So just make up something funny that has those as the first letter of each word. And I will continue to remind you how to do this as we go along. So let's do the first official question. This will make much more sense as we go. Now, for example 1, notice there's a big capital G here. That means I'm working from angle G. I can only work from the acute angles. So let's label. Where's the hypotenuse? Let's just put an H. The opposite angle, so opposite is straight over here, and that means 8 is my adjacent. So I'm writing fractions. That's all I'm doing. So sine is, now we can look back up at the top or right up here, guys. Let's look back up here and say sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So from angle G, what is opposite over hypotenuse? That's 15 over 17. Guys, and you're finished with that one. You're done. Cosine of G. So again, you're working from G. What is G? That's C equals A over H. So what is A over H? That is 8 over 17. And then lastly, we have tangent of angle G. So tangent is O over A. So over A is 15 over 8. Now, a couple things to realize. I have 3 different sized side lengths. It is a scaling triangle, which means it produces over here 3 different answers. You should never have 2 answers that are the same if all 3 numbers are different. If 2 numbers are the same, then you will have one that repeats. Now, what's different about over here on the right where it says sine of t, cosine of t, and tangent of t? So that means we need to erase all of our markings, and we're going to work now from angle t. It's acute, so we're allowed to. the hypotenuse stays the hypotenuse, but my opposite is now over here, and my adjacent is next to me. So it's the 15. So the opposite and the adjacent switch sides depending on which angle you're working from. So let's find the tangent of angle T. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. So opposite over adjacent is 8 over 17. Cosine of T, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's 15 over 17. And lastly, tangent, that is opposite over adjacent, so that's 8 over 15. Now, there is a pattern to this. When you're finished, you can know if you have this correct. So whatever the sine was of the first one, if you look down here, it's really the cosine of the other angle. So notice they're both 15 over 17. Now notice that those two are the same. They're both 8 over 17. And then the two tangents, they're reciprocals. So reciprocals just mean you take the numbers and you flip them. So instead of 15 over 8, over here on the right, I have 8 over 15. Those are reciprocals. And this will work every time when you do this to both angles. And they have to be the acute angles. Okay, find the missing side, then write the ratio for sine, cosine, and tangent of the given angle. Simplify all fractions, do not round. Okay, so what you're having to do first is you have to find the missing side. So we're doing Pythagorean theorem first. So to find this side, I'm saying my hypotenuse squared equals the leg squared plus leg squared. So that's 25 equals 9 plus x squared. So when I subtract 9, I get 16. And then I square root both sides, so x is 4. So let's replace this with 4. Now we can do the new stuff from today. So I'm going to write a little cheat sheet here. Some old horse caught another horse, taking oats away. So this will help us. What is sine? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So which angle over here am I working from? Notice I'm working from angle D. This is my hypotenuse. Where is the opposite? Straight across, so this is opposite. And so the 3 has to be my adjacent. So again, what's opposite over hypotenuse? Well, we have it labeled. That's easy. It's 4 over 5. What is cosine? Cosine, let's look at the little cheat sheet. It's adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's 3 over 4. And what's tangent? That's opposite over, oh, I just goofed. Yeah, there. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. My hypotenuse was not 4. My hypotenuse was 5. Got it. So tangent is opposite over adjacent, and that one is the 4/3. Notice all the answers are different, and you are now finished with this one. So this one is now complete. So guys, that's all there is to it. You just write fractions. You tell me what side goes over what side. Okay, now for time's sake, I'm just going to tell you this answer. This is 3 root 2. So we're going to do the same thing. We know this is my hypotenuse. If I'm working from angle D, that means straight across is my opposite. And then the other 3 is my adjacent. So notice we do have 2 sides that are the same this time. Okay, so what is sine? Opposite over hypotenuse. So we have 3 over 3 root 2. So I'm hoping your little math radar is going off because you're not allowed to have that square root in the denominator. Okay, And you might also notice you have a 3 on top and 3 on the bottom. So you're allowed to simplify it. So there's a lot going on here we need to fix. If you have a yellow calculator, you can type in 3 over 3 root 2, and it will simplify this for you. If you're taking I-step, though, as you know that, you won't have that calculator, so this is something you need to know how to do on your own. So let's simplify this. 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 3 once. So I am left with 1 over root 2. Now the root 2, I can't leave it in the denominator. So I multiply it by root 2 over root 2. So let's multiply across the top. I get root 2. And then square root of 2 times square root of 2 is square root of 4. And the square root of 4 is 2. And feel free to grab that yellow calculator. Check what I just did. You'll see that it is square root of 2 over 2. So here's my next question. Is cosine the same thing? What do you think? All right, cosine, if you go over here and look, is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that is 3 over 3 root 2. That looks familiar, doesn't it? All right, so this is actually going to simplify to the exact same thing. Remember before I told you when two sides are the same, you'll have two answers the same. Now lastly, we have tangent. Now let's look over here. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So let's find our opposite and adjacent side. Those are 3 over 3, which, just simplifies down to 1. So make sure you box or circle your final answers. And we are now finished with this one. Okay, so again, I'm going to write down my little shortcut. Some old horse caught another horse, taking oats away. Again, for time's sake, I'm going to tell you this is 4 root 3. That's a 3. Okay. If you want to find that on your own, you would just do Pythagorean. If you want to learn how to do Pythagorean, you need to watch the video 8.1. Okay, so let's write our 3 fractions here. Which angle am I working from? This is an easy question. I'm working from Z. Okay, so this is my acute angle I'm working from. Let's label opposite. We know the hypotenuse, so that means 4 root 3 is my adjacent. So what's the tangent of Z? Tangent. No, what am I saying? What is the sine of Z? Sine's up first. Okay, so that's opposite over hypotenuse. So my opposite side is 4 and my hypotenuse is 8. So that's 4 over 8, which reduces to 1 over 2. Next, cosine. So cosine, if you look, is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this one might involve a little more work, maybe. Let's see, 4 root 3 over 8. So here's the question. Is the root 3 okay, or do you have to fix it? And hopefully you know if the square root is in the numerator, if it's on top, it's fine. You don't have to fix it, but you need to look at it and see if you can simplify it. And you can, because 4 goes into 4 once and 4 goes into 8 twice. So this is going to simplify into root 3 over 2. So cosine is now finished. Now let's do tangent. This is opposite over adjacent. So my opposite side is 4, and my adjacent side is 4 root 3. Now is this one okay? Can I have a square root in the denominator? Hopefully you're saying no. It's bad. I can't leave it like this. Now, maybe you're noticing 4 on top and the 4 on the bottom. Those can simplify. So this is really 1 over root 3, but it's still messed up. I can't leave the root 3 in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply it by root 3 over root 3. So I get square root of 3 over 3 as my answer. So notice I had 3 different side lengths. I have 3 different answers now. So we are finished. All right, now, for time's sake, I'm going to skip D and E. If you have these on your notes, you need to try to go ahead and fill them out, and I'd be happy to look at them. You are going to have to use Pythagorean to find these missing side links before you begin. Okay, so now we are going to need a calculator. So if you have a cell phone calculator, you're going to need to open it up and then turn it sideways so you can see the buttons, sine, cosine, and tangent. So I'm going to do that with my calculator here. Now we're going to start out really simple. If you have a yellow calculator, you type in sine 27 and then enter. Now, I don't have a calculator like that on me. I'm using my cell phone calculator. Now, the first thing you need to look at is it turned sideways? Can you find the sine, cosine, and tangent button on your calculator? Now, we're going to have to type this in backwards. We're going to have to type in, if you're using your cell phone, type in 27 and then hit the sine button. Now, it's just different for different calculators, so I really recommend trying to get a calculator that you're going to use, during class, on homework, at home. So, when it comes to your test day, you're used to your calculator on your phone, and of course, you can't use that on your test. And I just want you to be able to take your test and know what you're doing, guys. Now, type this into your calculator. We're going to round this to 4 decimal places. And my answer is 0.95637. If I'm rounding to 4 decimal places, the 7 rounds the 3 up. So I should really erase this and put a 3 at the end. No, a 4 at the end. Like that. Now, if you don't get that answer, we need to look at your calculator first and decide if you have this in the correct mode. Your calculator needs to be in degrees. Angles are always in degrees. Now, your calculator has 2 modes. It has radians and it has degrees. If your calculator is giving you a weird answer, try to figure out where you can toggle that back and forth. On my cell phone, it's on the very bottom left corner. When I push it, it goes to RAD. When I push it again, it goes to DEG. And I really want this in degrees, not radians. So let's try the next one. I'm typing 48 cosine. If you have a yellow calculator, you're going to type in cosine 48, enter. So I get the answer 0.6691. Let's try the next one. 89 tangent. So I get 57.28996. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, this is a gross rounding one. So this actually rounds up, which rounds this up. So it really rounds to 57.2900. So that's a really gross rounding one. Okay. Now, example number 4, we're going to use trig ratios to find the value of x. All right. Now, we're still going to use this little cheat sheet that we've been doing. Some old horse caught another horse, taking oats away. So from the angle given, which is the 34 degree, it has to be the acute angle, which 2 sides are presented to you? Well, you have the hypotenuse side and you have the adjacent side. So then you're going to look at your little cheat sheet and say, is that really sine, cosine, or tangent? So A over H, as you can see here, is cosine. So that's the function we're going to use. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and step just in and put in cosine. The 8 is the hypotenuse. Let's fill in the blanks. The x is the adjacent. And so, as we already said, we're using cosine. So, is it x over 8 or is it 8 over x when we're going to write it? So, it's adjacent over hypotenuse, so that is x over 8. Okay, so the easiest way to solve this, and I don't really do this next step the way the directions say. I put the cosine 34 over 1 and I cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, 1 times x is x. And then I cross multiply the other way. And I say, now here's the tricky thing. You have to put the 8 in front of the cosine. So it's 8 times cosine 34. Now I'm going to show you what not to do. Do not do cosine 34 times 8. Because what some calculators will do is they'll multiply these together and then take the cosine of it. And that's not what we want. What we want is for you to take the cosine of 34 and then times it by 8. So there is a difference. So we have to write it properly. So if you have a yellow calculator, you type it in exactly as you see it. You type in 8 cosine 34, enter. If you're using your cell phone, you're going to have to type in 34 cosine and hit the times button, 8, enter. So we get the final answer of 6.6. Doesn't say what to round to. This is to the nearest tenth. So we are finished. So I know there are a lot of steps. Let's just keep going through them and you will get this. Okay, from this angle, what two sides do you have? You have opposite and you have hypotenuse. So look at your cheat sheet. What's opposite and hypotenuse? Sine, cosine, or tangent? And hopefully you see it is sine. So the way you write it is you say sine 36. You need to state what angle you're working from, what trig function are you using, and then you're going to say the side length over the other side length. So it's 20 over x. Okay, so as we did in the last one, we are going to cross multiply. So 20 times 1 is 20. And then again, this x that I'm multiplying by, it goes in front. So x times sine 36. Now, if I'm solving for x, I need to move whatever's next to it. So I'm dividing by sine 36. And so if you have a yellow calculator, you're just going to type in 20 over sine 36, enter. Now, on the cell phone calculator, it's not as easy. Let's type it in. 20 divided by 36. Now hit the sign button and now hit enter. We should have the answer now to the nearest tenth, so that means one decimal. That's 34.0, or just 34. All right, we're finished. On the next one, we have, let's see, the hypotenuse is over there. So right away, if I'm not using the hypotenuse, I know this has to be tangent. Now let's go ahead and label the other sides. X is my opposite side. 33 is my adjacent side. So what is tangent? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. All right, so my opposite is x and my adjacent is 33. Let's cross multiply. So 1 times x is x. And then I put the 33 in front. And this is tangent 55. If you have the yellow calculator, type in tangent or 33 tangent 55, enter. If you have a cell phone calculator, type in 55, hit the tangent button, then the times button, 33, enter. And I get the answer of 47.1. Okay, so we are to the last question. Solving triangles. So this means you're going to find the measure of, the keyword here is all the angles and the sides. So you're going to find everything. Now, here's the thing that's the easiest. Do you guys remember the triangle sum theorem, which says the triangle always equals 180 degrees? So finding this angle measure is really, really easy. So the measure of angle A is just 180, and then I'm going to subtract the 90-degree angle, and then I'm going to subtract the 61-degree angle. All right, so let's grab a calculator. 90 or 180 minus 90 minus 61 is 29. Now, you have both acute angles, and you could use either. This is your choice. There's no right or wrong answer here, unless you're using the 90. We can't use that. I'm going to use the 61 since it was given to us, and I know that is correct. I guess there's always a chance that we could have messed up on the 29. So from the 61, let's label. I know where my hypotenuse is. Here's my adjacent. My adjacent is here, and this is my opposite. Okay. So I need to find B, and I need to find C. And so let's just cover up for a minute. Let's see. Let's just cover up and just ignore this one for a minute. If you only had this information, you know how to do it because we practiced it on the previous 2 or 3. You're going to say, what is adjacent and hypotenuse? So find where I wrote down the little things. Adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So we're going to use the cosine to solve for B. So cosine, what angle are you going to use? 61 degrees, adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so solve it. Cross multiply. So 9 times 1 is 9. Then I have B times cosine 61. And then I divide by cosine 61. Okay, grab your calculator. Again, yellow calculator is so much easier. Cell phone calculator, 9 divided by 61, cosine, enter. I get 18.56. Now it's just to round to the nearest 10th, so that means that 6 is going to round the 5 up. So this is really 18.6. Now, are we finished? And hopefully you're saying no. Because remember, there's more information up here. I just covered it up. How do we find C now? Now there's 2 choices. We could use trigonometry, the stuff that we're learning today, or you can use Pythagorean. Because don't you know 2 sides of a right triangle? So if you're really, really great at Pythagorean, do that. If you like what we're doing today, do that. Since this lesson's supposed to be over using trig, I'm going to use trig. Okay, so I'm going to use this side here because I already found it. I'm only going to use the adjacent and the opposite side. So let's look at our little cheat sheet. What's adjacent over hypotenuse? No, it's opposite over adjacent. Yeah, adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so hopefully you're saying when you're not using your hypotenuse, that is tangent. And I'm still working from the 61-degree angle. And so opposite over adjacent is C over 9. So let's cross multiply. C times 1 is C. Then you have 9 tangent 61. So let's type it in. Cell phone calculator here, 61. Hit the tangent button, times 9, enter. 16.2. All right, so you're finished. And, I mean, just something I notice here. Don't we know the hypotenuse is always the longest side? So when you're finished, is the hypotenuse still the longest side? And it is. So you know that you probably did it correctly. And it looks like we're done, guys. We found the missing angle. We found all the missing sides. So it looks like we're finished. Now, we're not done with this lesson. This has 2 parts. So if you need help with part 2, you need to go ahead and find that video now. If you have any questions, let me know.